What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, continuing my deep dive into Stephen Still's studio catalog. I already did a video doing his 7 albums he released in the 70s. And now I have the 4 albums he's released since the 70s, or at least under the name Stephen Stills. He is in a group with Kenny Wayne Shepherd. I'm going to do those two. He did one with Judy Collins. I'll drop that in a single video after this. But I just got the 4 that he released after the 70s. One of them I probably shouldn't include because it's old. It's session tapes from 1968, but he did release it and it is fantastic. So I'm going to include it in this ranking. 4 albums. We're going to go from 4 to 1. Then I will include these 4 and the other 7 from the 70s. The Zappa connection, a lot of connections. Zappa, Flo and Eddie. One of them is on a Stephen Stills album. Plus, Flo and Eddie mentioned Stills and Crosby, Stills and Nash, Fillmore East, and that whole groupie era routine. So anyways, yeah, that's it. And I'm pretty new to Stills, so take that with a grain of salt. I really just got into him recently after I did the Neil series and did a bunch of Crosby, Stills and Nash stuff. People have recommended or urged me to check him out and review him, so I am. So yeah, these are my thoughts on the 4 albums he has done since the 70s. All right, on to number 4. Number 4 came out in 1984, Right By You. This thing just, if you were to make a list of every bad production choice and sound choice that the 80s indulged in, and then you were to take that list and compare it to the sounds on this album, you just might check off everything. It's got bad synth sounds, synth drums, some synth percussion. I think there's some synth horn stabs in there. It's just everything that's bad with the 80s. It's just a rough listen. Like, personally, as somebody who grew up in the 80s, who like really got into music in the early 80s, and then by the mid 80s, it was just like, I mean, some of the worst sounds ever committed to vinyl or committed to anything occurred in the 80s. And a lot of them are on this album. And it's a shame because there's a number of songs where it's like, I think if the production was better, there's hope. And then there's also 3 songs at the end of the album where we're like, oh, wait, why couldn't the rest of the album just sound like this? So it's kind of a weird, frustrating listen. But it's essentially like, I think there's 10 songs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 songs. 7 of them are just generic 80s synth pop with some guitar solos randomly thrown in. Jimmy Page shows up for a couple solos. Bernie Leadon is on here randomly. But yeah, the first 7 songs, it's a rough listen. 50/50, the title track, just kind of generic synth pop with a little Latin flavor. Guitar solo just dropped in the middle of this sort of synth madness. Stranger flirts with a little Ride Like the Wind Christopher Cross energy, but just not as good. Flaming Heart, kind of potential in this song, but the synth sounds are horrible. Love Again, fake marimbas, it's a sonic mess. Just no problem. Kind of a pseudo synth dance track. I'm About to Know. I Can't Let Go. A ballad that could have been sung by Whitney Houston. Like, we're just straight synth R&B pop right here. If Whitney had all of a sudden started singing after the musical intro to this, I'd be like, oh yeah, was this on her debut album? How'd I miss this? That's a good synth pop album. I think it's a duet with someone. I don't know who the other person is singing. Gray to Green. The melody to this reminds me of the song, I Would Do Anything, but I can't remember what the name of that song is. I would do anything. There's a song there. Reminds me of that melody. And then, that's 7 songs right there. Song number 8 is a cover of Neil Young's Only Love Can Break Your Heart. And oh my goodness, is that melody sweet. Oh my goodness, that is like candy. It's like you're in this horrible candy shop and all of a sudden you find the most delicious thing ever. The arrangement's a little sparser. Absolutely works. A home run, thanks to a Neil Young written song. Then after that, we go into a straight up acoustic song, No Hiding Place. Straight up bluegrass, super catchy, super fun, sounds amazing. In fact, I'm of the mindset that if the first 7 songs, you just ditched all the synth stuff and you just let Steven do bluegrass versions of these, this album would be a killer. And then the last song, we go back to the synth vibes, but it's like this slow burning, like late 80s Eric Clapton type bluesy synth vibe where, yeah, you can hear like the fake drums and stuff, but like we're getting a little more grittier and into it. And there's some great guitar and things really get smoking. Man, 3 fantastic songs to end this album, 7 utterly generic 80s synth pop songs to open it. A frustrating listen, but at least a little glimpse of the Stills magic shines through. Just got to sit through the first part. Easily my number 4 in the 80s on. Right by You. My number 3 is Stills Alone, an album that came out in 1991. That is Stills Alone. It's all him, guitar, singing, a much more laid back, sparser affair. Production issues. We don't have any of that horrible 80s synth stuff. If I have a complaint about this album, and I do not like the sound, for the most part, of the guitar he's using. It's not that acoustic hollow body, like traditional acoustic guitar that you see him holding on the cover of this album. It's like plugged in, there's electricity involved. And so it has this much fuller electric, I don't know if I want to say the word richer, because richer to me connotates something positive, and I don't think it's a positive, but it just has that sound that I wish he went into the studio with a guitar and then just mic'd it, just had a mic here and we got that. Like it was a live recording with like an actual, the sound of the guitar I don't like. There are overdubs, so like there's multiple guitars sometimes, or sometimes an electric guitar going throughout. There's a percussion on one. None of those things bother me. It's just the sound of the guitar. I think if it was different and it had a little more of a naturally acoustic flavor, natural acoustic sound, I think this album would probably be number 2, probably not number 1, and we'll find out when we get to number 1 why. But there's some really good stuff on this, regardless. And a bunch of covers, which are interesting. We have a cover of In My Life, the Beatles song. I don't think it works. Like, it's kind of a perfect song to begin with, and I think Stills' more emotional, drawn-out vocals just can't compare to Lennon's more focused, like, this is the way it is type emotion. There's a cover of the Ballad of Hollis Brown, which I think absolutely works. It feels like Stills is covering a traditional blues song, which testifies to like the strength of Dylan's songwriting, that this feels like a blues cover from like the 30s. So absolutely works. And then I want to say there was one other one. Oh yeah, he does a cover of Everybody's Talking, the theme song from Midnight Cowboy. It's slower than the original, a little more emotional, maybe a little more exhausted in the vocal performance. Definitely not as like straightforward and like no frills as the original, but it works and it's really good. So the covers, 2 for 3 for the covers. Again, anytime you cover a Beatles song, you're going up against the greats. Isn't It So is the opener, really nice, some great harmonies in here. I think he's just harmonizing with himself because I think it's just him on here. Yeah, just really works. Great sound, great introduction. Then we got Everybody's Talking. We got a slower, ballady more song called Just Isn't Like You. Some nice, really electric guitar that runs throughout that could maybe be a little higher in the mix. Then we get In My Life. Then we get the Ballad of Hollis Brown. We get a song called Sing and Call, which has this really nice sort of finger-picking ballady thing. Sort of a trippy Beatles ballady vibe, like something maybe you would find like deep on the White Album. The Right Girl, kind of a country folky, about a honky-tonk angel. Kind of like a grittier version of like an Eagles, like a Henley sung ballad, but just a little more grit in it, as Stills is wont to have. An awesome song called The Blind Fiddler Medley, which has this just really great old school 70s acoustic blues storytelling vibe. Lost My Eyes in a Blacksmith Shop. Just fantastic, fantastic song. A little Latin-y, percussion-y, dance groove thing called Amazonia, which has some really nice soloing in it. The song, not really my thing. And then Treetop Flyer, fantastic closing song. Great finger-picking vibe on this. I Can Be a Rambler, like just great bluesy stuff. Just a really solid, just Stills being Stills, showing off his skills. He's a great guitar player. He brings emotion to songs. My only complaint is I wish the guitar had a different sound to it. But much better than the previous one. My number 3, Stills Alone. My number 2 is Man Alive, which came out in 2005. And this album is fun. It is a collection of songs that Stills had either written and then re-recorded over the course of his career, going back to the 70s. And so there's a really eclectic feel about it. Some of the songs feel like 70s Stills songs. Some of the songs feel like they could have come off Stills Alone. Some of the songs, one of the songs is from Crosby, Stills, and Nash Young's American Dream, kind of with different lyrics. Like one of them has Herbie Hancock on it, and it's this sort of Spanish flavored, flirts with like maybe a little sketches of Spain vibe, but not really, but with a little bit flirts with it, with this fantastic Hancock electric piano solo. It's all over the map and feels like an eclectic 70s album, which I think as far as albums go, like the variety you would get on a random 70s album, no other decade can just match that. And this has that vibe. It doesn't all work, but the ambition of it and just the sort of hodgepodge nature of it, I don't care. Like, I just think from start to finish, this is a fun listen. Ain't It Always opens up, just your really great driving bass, focused, streamlined 70s type rocker. This dates from 76. The next song, unfortunately, we got a speed bump right off the bat. Feed the People. Down with the sentiment of the lyrics, but it's got this bad synth Caribbean sound, like this fa reggae vibe. I gotta say no to that. Heart's Gate, a slower, simpler ballad. Sounds like it could have been on Stills Alone. I think it was a new song. He played it like a couple years earlier, and it was a new song then. Round the Band, which is this really great, just 80s crunchy rocker. Neil's on guitar. Kind of sounds a little bit of like an Eric Clapton type mid-80s rocker with like a ZZ Top type rock vibe, just a little more guitar, a little of that heavier sort of just kind of rhythm and bluesy type guitar. I Don't Get It, super fun song, tasty guitar, nice chill groove, these really sweet backing vocals. This is a song that dates back from 1991. Around Us, nice funky little dance groove that kind of reminds me of Fish's Yamar, with these really nice kind of funky little chords that kind of come in that just kind of make you want to sway just a little bit. Not like a committed dance song, but there's that little energy, like hippie dance energy in it that's fantastic. Old Man Trouble, Booker T cover, soulful, slow, bluesy, got a Mr. Charlie reference, which is cool, really good energy, fantastic guitar playing. Different Man, acoustic traditional. I think this is an actual traditional song that they cover. I think Neil plays on this also. Piece of Me, Stills alone on guitar, kind of sounds like Stills alone. Got some guitar, some voice, some harmonica, really kind of stark vibe. The fantastic Wounded World, which has this sort of almost big radio pop rock produced sound, but it's this really nice kind of throbbing bass sound that reminds me of Black Velvet, that 80s song, Black Velvet in a Cold Summer Night, whatever that is. But just that guitar that just got that bass that just like doom, 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 doom. Way too short at like 3 minutes. This could have been like a 6-minute song, and I would have like bathed in this sound easily for more time. Driving Thunder also kind of sounds like ZZ Top, like their late 80s, early 90s electronic type production with the guitars mixed in, but it works. Co-wrote this with Neil. It's from American Dream. Absolutely works. It's got new lyrics in the American Dream version. Acadian, sort of a New Orleans type, Cajun type vibe to this. Doesn't really work for me as much. Kind of reminds me of the Feed the People. But, you know, it's him kind of, he likes to dip into different musical genres. And then we close out with the absolutely phenomenal Spanish Suite. this nice jazzy Spanish vibe to open. We get some Spanish lyrics. We get some English lyrics. We got a trumpet solo in there. We got a Herbie electronic piano solo. Gets more upbeat, about 420. We get a little more jammy. This is from 1979. A home run of a song. A great way to end the album. Super fun, super eclectic, a little bit of everything. He's definitely not breaking any new musical barriers other than maybe the Herbie Hancock on this song. But it is fantastic. A really, really solid listen. My number 2, Man Alive. And my number 1, which maybe should not be on this list, but I'm going to put it on here anyways, is called Just Roll Tape. April 26, 1968. Apparently that date is wrong. Apparently it was August 68. But these are demos that Stills recorded in 68. I think one of them is from a later recording session. The last song, Treetop Flyer, which we just talked about, is an awesome, or was a couple of albums ago. But his girlfriend, Judy Collins, did a session. Afterwards, I guess he begged the engineer to get some time in, recorded a bunch of songs, left the tapes behind. The tapes were lost for decades. And finally, in 2007, they were released. It's just Stills and a guitar, no production, no nothing, just the recordings. It is amazing. It is fantastic. It is a great listen. You have a couple songs that would appear on Manassas albums, one song that would appear on Stephen Stills' debut, a couple songs that would appear on Stephen Stills 2, one song that would not appear until he did an album with Judy Collins a couple years ago or within the last decade or so. It is just an absolute fantastic listen. The first side is all stuff that's Stills related, and then the second side I think has some more Crosby, Stills, and Nash stuff. So you get a song called All I Know Is What You Tell Me, catchy, bouncy, acoustic. These are all like 2-3.5 minutes long. They're all pretty short things. Super fantastic. So Begins the Task, which would end up on a Manassas album. Just great. Has that sort of do kind of finger-picked, Can't Find My Way, but with a little more energy. Can't Find My Way Home, but with a little more energy vibe. Change Partners, which pretty much just sounds like Change Partners, only it's just Steven and acoustic guitar. Know You Got to Run, full confident performance. We would eventually see that on Stephen Stills too. The Doctor Will See You Now. This has a full kind of like Heart of Gold Neo vibe to the opening chords, but quickly goes somewhere else once Stills starts singing. We get a short version of Black Queen that's super tasty. Bumblebee, which would become Love Gangster. Bouncy, energetic, great solo acoustic song. A song called Judy, dedicated to Judy. Kind of sounds like a Joni Mitchell type vibe. I'll do anything to please you. Just let me try. This would appear on the album he did with Judy Collins. That's side A. Side B opens up with this really neat little, almost like falling apart, ramshackle, like making it up as we go type thing called Dreaming of Snakes that has this sort of ominous type vibe to it. Very beginning kind of reminds me a little bit of House of the Rising Sun, a little bit, just the arpeggiated chords, just briefly, definitely doesn't go that dark or intense, but a great little song. And then we get 3 CSN songs, Sweet Judy Blue Eyes, which is just wow. To hear him doing this by himself, so energetic, it absolutely works. Helplessly Hoping, Delicate and Perfect, Wooden Ships, short little version of that. And then we get a song called Treetop Flyer, I think it's about several more minutes, a couple minutes longer than the version we get on Man Alive. He's on the dobro. I think this comes from different sessions is what I read, but also just an absolutely fantastic song, a fantastic performance. Probably should not be the number 1 just because it is a different beast than an officially released studio album. It is an archival release, but it is fantastic. And it is a testament to Stills' craft and Stills' skill as a guitar player and a songwriter and his voice. And yeah, I would be a fool not to praise this highly. But that is easily my number 1 from the 80s on. Just Roll Tape. Yeah. And there is what all 11 albums look like ranked. I have Just Roll Tape all the way at number 4 and Man Alive at 5. Right above Stills, his sort of comeback solo album after Manassas. And then Stills Alone after that. And then we get the sort of back half of his career, that second Manassas album, a couple late 70s thing, and then that 80s album Right By You. But this is some great stuff. And those first, definitely the top 5, maybe the top 6. If it weren't for that guitar sound, the top 7. Just some really solid stuff. But to me, the pure revelation on here is number 4, Just Roll Tape. I don't think it's a better album than those top 3 simply because it is outtakes, and those will all go help make those other albums the good albums they are. But just the vibrancy, just to go in and cut these things in like a session and wow, not have it released for decades, really fantastic. Just really, really happy I discovered that album. So anyways, but that's what they look like right there. I'm going to hit a couple more things. His stuff with Kenny Wayne Shepherd, is that his name? Kenny Wayne Shepherd, and those other stuff. But that'll be in a couple days. But anyways, that's all I got for now. Let me know your thoughts on these albums, what you think of Stephen Stills, etc., etc. Subscribe, like, share, comment. And yeah, that's all I got for now. Thank you for watching. Peace. Talk to you later.